Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Don't mind me, I'm just adjusting the camera a little bit here. Today we're going to be doing a quick little tutorial on how to make the rolled up tarps that I use on my trailers and on some of my deck plates on my truck builds and things like that. I've actually had several requests for doing this, and today we're going to be working on what materials we're going to use and making the actual tarp and rolling it up. And then I will be doing a second video to show you how to go about painting it and doing the highlighting on it to make it look more realistic. So stay tuned for that. And that'll probably be coming up most likely either tomorrow night, which will be Saturday night, or on Sunday. I actually have a show tomorrow, so I'm not sure what time we'll get back from that. It's about a 2.5 hour drive to and from. So depending on how long the show is, we might be too tired to do a video tomorrow night. But if we do, look for it. Like I say, it'll be the second part. So we're going to jump right into this and get started. So here we go. The first thing that you're going to need to do this is, now a lot of people will use paper towels. I actually use the shop towels. I think they have more of a scale texture to them to do tarps. So I'm using these blue shop towels from Scott. And you're going to need a fairly wide brush to put your mixture on. And I just use a little cup and cut the top off of it and use that for my mixing cup. A little bit of water and some white glue. And what else do we need? A pair of scissors. So the first thing that you want to do is to figure out how big you want the tarp to be. And what I normally do is measure. If I've got a deck plate a certain width or whatever, I'll know what to fold it up. But what we're going to do in this is we're not going to pick any particular size. We're just going to go through and I'll show you the technique on how to do it. Once you know that, if you're looking for a particular size for your model, you can do some measurements and cut the cloth to that. So what I do is I always say that I would want the cloth, say an inch wide or roughly in that neighborhood, or the tarp when it's done. I'll go ahead and cut that about triple that size. So, and I'll show you why I do that here in just a minute. So we're going to go ahead and make that roughly about 3 inches. I'm not measuring this out, so I'm just eyeballing it. So I'll measure it out to about 3 inches, and now you want to figure how many rolls that you want in it. So that's another thing that would dictate how long it actually is when it's rolled up. And the longer the tarp would be, the more folds you would have in it. So we're just going to do a fairly short one for this tutorial. So I'm just going to cut that in half. And we've got basically a rectangle here. And what I like to do is pretty much figure this into thirds. And I will just take the towel and fold it over. And then I will come back over and basically fold it over the other way, like that. And it just kind of gives me some reference folds in there. Now sometimes when you put the mixture on, the line will disappear. Since that's a fold, you could actually take a pencil and kind of just mark that very lightly. That way you can see your folds if you can't really get getting it into thirds by freehand. So that's another trick you can use on that. And the next step that we're going to go to is we're going to take a little bit of water. And I've actually got some old water here from a decal. Actually, the tutorial we did on compound curves. So we're just going to put that in the cup. And then we're going to take good old simple, what is this stuff? Elmer's glue, that's what it is, white glue. Very handy stuff. And basically the mixture that you're looking for is about half and half, roughly in that neighborhood. You don't want to make the cloth too stiff, but you also want to make sure that it's stiff enough to hold its shape. So about 50-50 is pretty good, or a little bit less. We'll swirl this around here and see how it looks. And usually what I like is kind of almost like a transparent white, if that makes any sense, when I'm mixing this up. Like I say, this is not a very hard technique at all. It's actually something fun to do. especially if you want to just kind of sit down one day and experiment with different things. This works well for dioramas and things like that. I actually learned this technique from one of my military modelers that I look up to. He had done I think it was a Sherman tank that he done, and he had some rolled up tarps on it. And I actually thought they were resin, and he said no, they're made out of some type of cloth he used. And I ended up trying a shop towel one time, and it worked out pretty good. Alright, so we've got it pretty much mixed up. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know, by any means. And you want it so it works best when it doesn't, you can dip the brush in it and it doesn't really drop off the brush. It's kind of what you're looking for. So we're going to go with that. And it's just a matter of brushing it on. Not very difficult at all. Anybody can do this. Even the beginners out there can do this. So this is a good project for just about everybody. And when you're all said and done, it looks very realistic. Some people will probably say that it doesn't, and you know, that's fine. That's you know, that's your opinion or whatever, and that's cool. I tend to like it myself. I think it looks very good, and I've used it on you know, a couple of models that have went on to you know, win their category and win best of. Some of them are best in shows, so it must be something that's somewhat in scale, or it looks right to somebody. So I go with this same technique. I don't vary from it too much. And we're going to go ahead and just cover the whole thing in. You want to get the whole piece of cloth covered with your glue mixture. Don't miss any of it, because that will affect the how it looks in the end. And I'm just doing this on a scrap piece of plastic here. Alright, now that we have it all covered with our mixture, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to try to fold it as close as we can on those lines. And the one thing you don't want to do is try to make it real square and straight down the sides, because when a tarp rolls up, unless you spend a ridiculous amount of time, it's going to be wavy. And that's kind of what you're looking for. You want it to be wavy. And you don't want to pack it down real hard or anything like that. You just kind of want to, you know, just lay it over, drape it over loosely. And then I'll start with the flipping motion. And this is where you got to figure out how big you want the tarp or whatever, as far as the scale that you're working with. So the less material that you use, you know, it makes a smaller one. The more material makes a bigger one. And another thing, if you cut too much material like I have here, and you're looking at your amount of folds in here as you're flipping along, and you go, oh, well, that's big enough, you can just stop at that point. And what I like to do, if I stop at that point, is I will turn it around here as soon as I get a hold of it. And don't pay any attention to my fingers either. For anybody out there that notices that my fingers are dirty, I'm doing a project at work. We're building a sound stage, and I've got a construction adhesive on, polyurethane construction adhesive on my fingers, and it's just a bear to get off. So I'll work on getting that off later on tonight. But when you cut this, you want to make sure when the tail that's left on here after you cut it, you want it to flip and land halfway here on your fold, or on your tarp itself. So I'm going to cut this so it'll roughly land about halfway across the rolled up tarp. And once I flip it over here, I'll show you why I do that. There we go. I flipped it over. And if you notice, it landed about halfway across the distance of the rolled up tarp. And the reason why I do that is when you go to display them, you can put that down just like that, and it makes it look a little bit more realistic, because most people are going to turn the end of the folded tarp. It'll always be to the downside, and you don't want to have it sticking out here on the edges, because then it just gets grossly out of scale, because you can actually see the thickness of the material, and you don't want that. And if you want it to be a little bit flatter and a little bit sharper or whatever, you can push it down. Or as you're, you know, at this stage here, you can actually grab a hold of it and squeeze it a little bit, and that'll make it a little bit more rounder. But basically, that's all there is to it. Once you get it to this point, you can kind of play with it. Another little trick you can do to it is if you've ever rolled up, you know, polyethylene tarps or anything like that, you'll notice that they're not always nice and straight. So you can kind of go in and take like a Q-tip or something like that and just lightly kind of pat it around a little bit and put a few wrinkles in it. Just like that. Just kind of wrinkle it out a little bit and make it, you know, a little bit more texture to it. And as far as making the tarp, that's all there is involved in it. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing to do. And let's see if we can hold it up here closer to the camera. And I'll give you an idea of what it looks like up close. Along with one of my dirty fingers there. But there's the tarp rolled up. You can see the folds there on the end of it. And we got a little bit of texture on top of it. And we'll lightly turn it around here, and there's the folds on the other side of it. So it looks very realistic, and once the glue and the water mixture dries, this will take on a nice firm feel. It's not solid, but it'll keep its shape and it'll stay glued together. So if anybody's following along with this tutorial and wants to try it, go ahead and work on doing that. And then like I say, either tomorrow night or Sunday, we'll go ahead and do a quick little video on how to go in and change the color of this and detail paint it a little bit. So be looking for that one. And like always, thank you for watching and supporting Showtime Studios, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.